Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fun, fascinating dive into the behavioral science of money. Usually when people talk about wealth, out come the spreadsheets, right? The complex formulas and, let's be honest, a whole lot of boring math. But we're going to bypass all of that entirely today. Because as it turns out, the true architecture of building wealth is much more deeply rooted in behavioral science than it is in accounting. Just consider this scientific anomaly for a second. Have you ever wondered why absolute geniuses, like people with totally off-the-charts IQs, often end up completely broke? Meanwhile, you've got seemingly average folks who quietly become millionaires? It kind of forces us to ask a rather provocative question. What if money actually has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence? Well, the answer to that is our core thesis for today. Money has almost everything to do with behavior. Throughout this explainer, we aren't going to look at wealth like Wall Street bankers trying to beat the market. And no, we're swapping those out and putting on the lab coats of behavioral scientists studying human nature. We're going to examine the invisible forces, those emotional baselines, and the daily decisions that actually shape your financial future. Okay, let's dive right into part one, the money formula myth.
So think about the standard life formula practically every single one of us learns in school. Step 1, you study hard and get good grades. Step 2, get a good, respectable job. And step 3, make money and become successful. It sounds perfectly logical, right? Kind of like a neat, predictable mathematical equation where your input equals your output. But in the real world, the messy, emotional human world, this formula drastically fails. It assumes humans are rational, calculating machines. And well, spoiler alert, we are absolutely not.
Just look at the stark contrast here. On the one hand, we have a highly intelligent individual. They might know literally everything about macroeconomic trends, but they make highly emotional, impulsive financial decisions that completely destroy their wealth. On the other hand, we've got a person of average intelligence. They aren't out here trying to outsmart the global financial system. They're just quietly building financial freedom through sheer, unwavering discipline. It really proves that financial success isn't an intelligence quotient, it's a behavioral skill. Which brings us to part two, the psychology of wealth. Now, what's really fascinating is that these variables aren't financial terms at all. Fear, greed, envy, pride, comparison. We so desperately want to think of money as just numbers and logic, but these 5 psychological variables dictate global markets way more than formulas or investment strategies ever will. These emotions, they're the true, raw driving forces behind our financial behavior. Just think about the great irony of human nature. When the market goes up, people inevitably get super greedy and buy at the absolute peak, all because they don't want to miss out. But then, when the market goes down, they completely panic and sell everything at the absolute bottom out of pure fear. Neither of these reactions makes any logical sense, but they are profoundly human. Our illogical emotional baselines are constantly overriding even our most rational financial plans. So, understanding human psychology is infinitely more valuable than just understanding finance. Moving on to part 3. The science of compounding. To really visualize this physical force, imagine a snowball rolling down a massive mountain. At year 1, that snowball is tiny. It's almost completely invisible. You might even look at it and wonder if the process is working at all. But just let it roll to year 10. Now it's growing steadily, picking up more snow with every single revolution. Fast forward to year 30, and it has become an absolute avalanche, an unstoppable force. The secret variable here isn't one lucky moment or some genius stock pick, it's simply consistency multiplied by time. So the really crucial point here is this. The biggest failure in the science of wealth isn't making one disastrous decision. Nope, it's simply quitting the experiment prematurely. Most people interrupt that compounding snowball because they get impatient. They want the avalanche today, right now, and in doing so, they essentially melt their snowball completely. This leads us to part 4, getting versus staying rich. Notice how getting rich requires taking some pretty big risks. It demands boldness, relentless optimism, and, shooting for the moon. But staying rich, that requires the exact opposite. It requires profound survival traits. We're talking extreme humility, endless patience, and ironclad discipline. This stark psychological shift perfectly explains why so many people make a total fortune, falsely assume their success is just a permanent trait that'll last forever, and then tragically end up losing it all. Let's transition to part 5, the danger of comparison. As Morgan Housel so sharply puts it, the worst financial trap is trying to keep up with others. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. Say you go out and buy a really nice, expensive car. For a few days, you feel amazing, right? Proud, maybe even a little superior. But then your neighbor pulls into their driveway with a slightly newer, slightly shinier, slightly faster model. Instantly, all your happiness just vanishes. Literally nothing physically changed about your life. Your car still runs perfectly, but your point of comparison changed. Because there is literally always someone richer, this is an endless, completely unwinnable behavioral trap that will destroy your financial happiness for sure.
And that brings us to part 6, redefining wealth.
Let's see how all this builds together. When most people hear the word wealth, their brain immediately pictures visible things, don't they? Huge mansions, expensive cars, designer clothes. But as we break down this definition in a scientific context, we see that true wealth is actually invisible. It's the money you actively choose not to spend. True wealth is the invisible freedom to wake up and do exactly what you want with your day. It's that unspent money sitting quietly in an account, just giving you options. It is, ultimately, peace of mind. Visible luxury? That's really just proof of money that's already been spent.
You can think of time as your ultimate asset, much like a tree growing. At the sprout stage, for a really, really long time, all the growth happens totally unseen, deep underground. Then it becomes a sapling through quiet, steady growth. And finally, years later, it becomes this massive tree of visible success. The reason most people fail is because they demand incredibly fast results. But look, if you keep digging up the sprout every day just to see if the roots are growing, you're going to kill the tree. You absolutely have to have the patience to let your invisible wealth build quietly in the dark before it ever sees the light of day.
Finally, we arrive at part 7, the concept of enough. And this brilliantly illustrates the great paradox we all face. Wealth is not about having more. It's actually about needing less. If you continuously move the goalpost, constantly demanding more money, more success, more everything, you're never actually going to arrive at your destination. There'll just always be more to chase. If you don't explicitly define when enough is enough for you, you're going to be permanently trapped in this endless, exhausting loop of dissatisfaction. And it won't even matter how many zeros are in your bank account. Which leaves us exactly here at the end of our behavioral explainer. So I want to leave you with this to think about. What is your money actually for? Is it merely for status, for competition, for buying visible luxury just to impress people you don't even really know? Or is it for something deeper? Is it the ultimate tool for engineering your own freedom and securing your peace of mind? You see, the math can never answer that for you. Only your behavior can. Thank you so much for diving into this fascinating subject with me today, and I really hope this changes how you approach your very own financial psychology.